Good morning, afternoon, or evening, or middle of the night, whatever the hell time it is. Welcome back to Storytime 2. They called it a game. Tonight we're going to be doing episodes 7 and 8, smashed into one. Remember, if you enjoy the content, like, subscribe, tell everybody that you've ever met, tell everybody that you meet on the streets, run up to random strangers, poke them, tell them about it. Or don't. I mean, it's your life. Do what you want. Either way, I'm here to read a story. So, we are going to get started as soon as I scroll to the top of it. And again, this is parts 7 and 8. As always, however, down in the description below, there will be links to every previous episode. You can get yourself caught up if you're not already caught up. Why the hell aren't you caught up? Alright, spoiler alert. They called it a game, episodes 7 and 8. It was a moment of disbelief. The air hurt deeply. It hurts me still. It's a cold I can't escape no matter how far I roam and no matter how hard I fight. In the lead assault teams were the strongest among us, the group we called Titan, myself and about 20 of my closest guildies. We stood there, every one of us in complete shock, as their tiny figures closed in. A clearly desperate and enraged look upon their faces, not a single one conflicted with his deeds. It was as though the entire town had been consumed with hatred. It would be easy, too easy I suppose, to find and kill a group of menacing bandits. That was exactly the training we had from life before. After all, we were heroes. As it turned out, or at least as it seemed, the Red was nothing more than a name the townspeople had used to lure us to their aid. They had become so desperate that they began to make sacrifices to Forge, heartlessly killing off adventuring groups and feeding the fires of the creature with the lesser quality equipment. In time, they began manipulating its paths and food supply, for all intents and purposes, controlling the lumbering Goliath. When they heard about our group forming, and our action in our own homes, they saw a chance at a big pile of desperately needed metal scraps. The children, though. The children I will never forget. They were almost like monsters themselves. Their sensitivities dulled to the point of near non-existence. This had already become life for them, and it hadn't even been a year. We could only surmise that this must have happened at the very early stages of the launch, that many of these children watched their new god eat their parents, friends, siblings, anything they may have cherished. It could just as easily have been true that none of that happened, and that we had stumbled upon the one town of nothing but absolute murderous nutjobs, but that just did not seem quite as likely to me. They were clad in torn bits of the armors we had equipped the rear guard with, and many of them carried the cold elemental weapons that were distributed among our ranks for the attack. We could no longer see their stats, however, which meant that each one of them was nearly as powerful as any one of us, and here were dozens. For all we knew, hundreds through the city, closing in on our 20-something racing hearts. Blood dripped from their blackened and soot-covered hair, down their innocent yet cold faces, across the smiles of a few. Their eyes were dead as they stared us down, awaiting an order or some movement, something. To be honest, I'm still not entirely sure I have any clue what they were waiting on, if anything at all. But whatever it was, they held us until the sun began to set. It was by a wide margin the longest 7 hours of my life. As the day began to close, though, it happened, and in a flash that I can only faintly recall, they rushed in upon us. Screaming and bloodied, without an ounce of fear or doubt, cutting down 4 of us almost instantly, before dissipating into the surrounding streets. The snow had begun to fall about an hour earlier, and now was just heavy enough on the ground that the blood began to be clearly visible. They were on our flanks, moving in again, when several of them escaped our detection skills entirely, What was at first a few dozen became only a dozen or so, and then quickly to 3 or 4, and then soon after that, none. Each of us tensed up for a moment, and then several of us relaxed, exhaling, and thinking to ourselves, whew, lost him, I guess. It was our gamer mentality getting the better of us, though. Lori, or Little Leprechaun, as we had known her before, had the highest detection skills among us, and only noticed for a split second the sound of a dart racing through the air at Sutical, short for pharmaceutical. He didn't keep his real name. One of our veteran healers, who had let his guard down. Only a moment later he was being ripped apart from the inside. Blades were forming and erupting from his arms and legs. His eyes went dark and then quickly flashed alight with a green fright. His bones were cracking and reshaping. It was a horrifying sight. Before any of us could really process what was happening, Sutical had leapt upon us. He had already cut a deep wound into my shoulder and clashed another blade from the shield on my right arm. Damn it! If only he had missed the left arm first. I already had problems with it from a few broken bones before the catastrophe took hold. Something clicked in my head, though, the second he connected with my shoulder, and without reservation I immediately crossed the blades on each of my Madus and took a heavily defensive posture, low to the ground to remain stable and strong, breathing slowly to remain calm and collected. It didn't help. This was an old friend of mine. Twisted and warped, and trying to kill me. I had seen a lot of things up until now. I watched my younger sister rise and become a strong leader in her town when she had spent so many years being a soft voice that got overlooked in the world before. I watched my younger brother nearly die before discovering the magic mechanics and taking New York by storm, setting up shelter and traps to protect the people of the city to this day. Even though I remain the last one standing of my original group, this town, this moment in the outskirts of Chicago, it was the defining point for so many of us, and the final moment for so many more. For now, though, I had to breathe. I had to react. To shove aside an incoming blade and thrust with my free arm. It was a motion I had made thousands of times before, an almost guaranteed strike against any humanoid opponent. The advantage of the Madu, really, each arm acting as a shield and a sword, protecting and attacking. They were the role I had taken in the New World, embodied in a light and durable metal that had only emerged since the launch. Up until now, though, they had served to protect the man they were currently honing in on. He was close to me. He had 2 kids before the launch, and as far as we knew, they had forged a path ahead and were successfully traveling the countrysides. He only got the occasional email from them. Even though we had managed to re-establish communications, with our numbers so drastically cut, we didn't have widespread access. We had trained my ex-wife and our children together in the earlier days, since we were geographically somewhat close to each other and got to know each other well. He was a pacifist at heart, but talked a different game. Make no mistake, he could walk the walk, but he would rather sit and chill. He was complex, but always underestimated. He didn't have the type of mannerisms you might mistake for a foreign dignitary, but he was a good man and a solid raider. Most of all, a trusted brother. What had happened here? Now my blood was scattered across his edged limbs, and his was running down the shield on my left arm. Both of us fighting for our existence. An image of the 2 species emerging in our world, humanity, and a twisted reflection of it. I burst into tears the moment I struck the blow. Lori crying, "Stop!" didn't make matters easier. I returned to a defensive posture. Like reflex, my shields rose up to protect my sides and respond. My body centered itself again. I didn't want this to continue. Dreg and Lily, a couple we had become close with only just prior to launch, leapt in trying to grab at Sutical. But he had no mind at this point. He was a thrashing beast. No different really from any other monster, right? It's easy to say you'd kill someone if you had to. It's easy to say if someone turns into a monster, they're fair game. I have a question, though, for you, my dear reader. Have you ever stared that down in person? It is no simple task to kill a man, and it is an infinitely more difficult one indeed when that man is like a brother to you, one whom you have entrusted with your very life more than a dozen times. As he turned back upon me, Dreg and Lily lying in pools of blood on the ground at his feet, and a terrifying green glow erupting from his gaze, I knew I had to act or die. And I just wanted to die. That is the end of episodes 7 and 8. They called it a game. This is actually season 1, by the way. There are 2 seasons of this. So I hope you've enjoyed them so far. I hope you will enjoy them upcoming. Forge is looming over our protagonists now. Come back tomorrow. I will have another couple of episodes and quite possibly some more Cup of Joe, which might go up tonight, but might not. No guarantees. Anyways, I hope you've enjoyed this. Have a wonderful day, evening, afternoon, whatever it is. Don't forget to like, to subscribe, to share it, and tell everybody that you've ever heard of and that you ever meet ever again all about it. That's right, because YouTube requires that I be a whore. I don't have to like it, but I have to do it. Thanks so much. See you guys soon. Take care.